We're empowering people by putting tools at their fingertips to create awesome recipes and other tutorials from their kitchen counters, their bathroom mirrors, their gyms and garages. Those exist on the Jump Rope app, and we make it super easy to share those to basically all of the different platforms a food blogger, other blogger might want to be on, from Instagram to TikTok to Facebook to your website and blog.
That was Jake Poses, and this is episode number 203 of the Chopped Podcast. Hey there, how are you doing? I'm so glad you've joined me today. I'm Marley McMillan with the blog Namely Marley. I am your host of the Chop Podcast, where we're here to talk about all the things related to food blogging. You know what they are, like entrepreneurism, productivity, mindset, social media, and even some technical things, because you know the list of things that we have to do as food bloggers is ever expanding. So today, we're going to talk a little bit on the technical side, but don't get scared away because it's an interesting topic, and it's one I think that you might really be drawn to, and that is video. Do you have a video strategy? And if not, are you thinking about creating one? When I say those words, does that cause you to feel a little overwhelmed? Because I can kind of feel the little triggers on the back of my neck raised, like, okay, one more thing that we have to do. Is that what you feel like? Or maybe you're already into video, you're embracing it, you're really doing a lot on your site. Either way, I think you're going to get a lot out of today's discussion, because I'm talking with Jake Poses. He is with Jump Rope. And maybe you've heard of them, maybe you haven't. I've been in some food blogging circles, Facebook groups, whatever, where I've seen them talk about Jump Rope, and I've been intrigued about what it's all about and what it can do for food bloggers. So I was very interested to learn from Jake what they do. And so, for example, you can use Jump Rope to use your existing content, like process shots and other still photos. And you can also add video clips to create these kind of story-like videos. You know, the stories that you see on Instagram or Pinterest or things like that. Those stories you can create to have them embedded on your site, or you can actually, Jake describes that they've got templates that you can then turn, this one single video into several different stories. Of course, they all have their own requirements, right? Pinterest may have different dimensions required than Instagram. And so anyway, what I understand from Jake is that information is just pumped right out. You can have all the templates that you need for all the different platforms. So it's kind of cool, right? And if you're in this boat where you're kind of wondering whether you want to go in this direction or not, Jake explains how actually stories are so popular that they've caught Google's attention as well. And they're coming out with web stories. So anyway, Google is getting into web stories, so it's just one more impetus for why you might want to consider doing videos yourself. And if that feels overwhelming to you, Jump Rope might be a tool that you could try and see if you like it, if it produces the video in a faster way that you could then use for your site. And as Jake points out in today's discussion, Jump Rope is free, so there's really little risk on your part for giving it a try. Having an experimental mindset is always a good approach. I think I have found success with that in my food blogging career. I've talked with other food bloggers that seem like they've experienced the same thing. So I feel like giving it a try might be something that would be worth your while. At the same time, I do think it's important to ask good questions when you're considering something new like this. And so I asked Jake some questions I had found from you all that you have about the platform and the tools that they provide. And so I think you'll get a lot out of today's discussion. If you have questions, I'm hoping that I ask the right ones, and you'll get in there and you'll learn more about Jump Rope and decide whether you want to use it for yourself. No matter what, I think you're going to find today's discussion very informative. Jake really sounds like he's done a lot of research. He works with a great team. And so they know a lot about video. And I think you're going to hear a lot about the informative side of video and how that can influence your video strategy, but also it's an inspirational discussion as well. So let's get straight to it. Here's today's featured discussion with Jake Poses. Hey everyone, I'm happy to have on the show today Jake Poses. He's co-founder of the company Jump Rope. Jake, welcome to the Chop Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. I'm sure everyone else is too, because, Jump Rope is kind of the buzz right now and everybody wants to hear about it. But I thought it would like to start a little bit with the background about Jump Rope. Can you give some background and, maybe even talk about how you describe Jump Rope?
Yeah, so our ultimate vision for Jump Rope is to be the place everyone goes to sort of discover how to do anything. So whether that be a recipe, craft project, beauty tutorial, parenting hack, our belief is that there's no great place on your phone you can reliably go to sort of discover how to do something in a format that's easy to consume and makes it easy for creators to create in. So basically, we're empowering people by putting tools at their fingertips to create awesome recipes and other tutorials from their kitchen counters, their bathroom mirrors, their gyms and garages. Those exist on the Jump Rope app, and we make it super easy to share those to basically all of the different platforms a food blogger or other blogger might want to be on, from Instagram to TikTok to Facebook to your website and blog, and we can go into more about how that works.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, when you say that though, my first response is like, oh, well, what about YouTube? But I can see your point that, if I search for something, like, I don't know, how to stain a cabinet or whatever, I can get a huge variety of responses from that on YouTube. Whereas you're saying yours is kind of more, I don't know if templated is the right word, but there's some kind of format to it that makes it more consistent.
Yeah, so we spent a lot of time at the beginning of Jump Rope talking to people about their experience, sort of discovering how to do things on the existing platforms. And obviously, YouTube came up a lot. And we heard there
Okay.
were sort of three real frustrations that sort of we believe our format addresses. One is that sort of traditional or continuous video doesn't enable you to move at your own pace. And so you're often, if you're actually cooking something, your hands are full and you're trying to pause this video with your elbow or your nose, or your hands are sort of full of grease. On the flip side, when you just want to be entertained or inspired, you may not want to sit there and watch the sort of the whole 10-minute video, and you want to actually tap through much faster. So we found frustrations with the format of continuous video for people learning how to do things. The second thing is that video has no links and isn't interactive and therefore isn't shoppable. And so oftentimes you need to know, what do I need to do this and where can I buy it? And so the Jump Rope format sort of addresses that. And third is that a lot of people are frustrated. It's actually hard to find the best content at the right time on the big platforms like YouTube. Like YouTube's algorithm is all tuned towards watch time, which makes sense for sort of the broader basket of things on YouTube, but doesn't really make sense for this type of content where being sort of concise and sped up is actually often better. And so YouTube doesn't do a great job of surfacing the right content. And then the last thing, which is sort of more on the creator side, is we found that like creating video for most people is just way too hard. And that sort of by moving from this sort of open-ended timeline-based video concept to sort of a more structured card-based process, that we've empowered a lot more people to create and share their knowledge and passion.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, but I want to
Yeah.
start with I have noticed lately when I am searching for something on YouTube, I feel like YouTubers are incentivized by making their videos longer, or at least a certain, like maybe
Hmm.
if they get to 6 or 7 minutes, it seems like and so then I feel like there's a lot of this kind of redundant talking that goes on that I'm fast forwarding past that kind of drives me crazy. So I totally see what you're saying about, having the videos be a little more succinct, whereas YouTubers are not really incentivized to create a succinct video.
That's totally right.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad. I like to hear that I'm right. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so that's I'm glad to hear. So in other words, Jump Rope is kind of like it's like it's a platform, but it's also an editing tool. I hear two things going on there.
That's accurate. And that is actually how most of the platforms you use today got started. So if you think about early days of YouTube, people were using it as a tool to get their videos online and embed them in their websites. If you think about the
Mm.
early days of Instagram, people were using it as a tool to filter and edit photos and share them to Facebook and Twitter. And so we're really following the footsteps of a number of the big platforms that have come before us, and saying, today we're going to provide creators who want to make a recipe video or craft DIY, et cetera, sort of the best place to do that, and enable them to share that everywhere. And that's kind of the bridge to us accumulating the best content in this sort of much more concise stories inspired format that we came up with. That's kind of our bridge to building a platform.
So I like this, and I love the fact that it's you're creating a tool that helps food bloggers or anybody, I guess, bloggers in general, or
Hmm.
even probably, anybody who wants to use the tool can create these videos much more easily than, say, if you're doing this, you have to have the camera and the lights, and you have to do the editing yourself. I mean, I know it can take hours to create a really good high quality video, and you're saying that actually your tool can help you do that in a lot less time.
Yeah, so we often hear from bloggers that, it takes them anywhere from a couple hours to a full day to sort of create a video the traditional way. And that's once they've sort of learned tools like Premiere or Final Cut Pro or iMovie. And we've made that process of editing that's down to like 10, 15, 20 minutes. So it's dramatically faster. And that's just to create one video. And then the second frustration we hear from a lot of creators about the existing tools is they're locked into an aspect ratio up front, right? They have to pick, I'm going to do this horizontal for YouTube, I'm going to do this
Yeah.
vertical for IGTV. And it's like, without redoing the work over and over again, it's very hard to take that same recipe and put it in a sort of genuine or sort of appropriate format on all the platforms where they want to reach an audience or grow an audience. And so what we do is we do all of that re-editing, or the app does all of that re-editing automatically. So you create once in our sort of structured cards, and you get vertical for IGTV, horizontal for YouTube, 4x5 for Facebook, images for Pinterest, HTML formats for your website or blog, a sped up version for TikTok, all at once.
Wow. So you do the work once, and the app, outputs, what do you sound like, 5 or 6 different templates that you can use for these different
Yeah, it's actually
platforms?
I didn't list them all. It's actually more like 15.
Okay.
And we keep adding, and the fun thing is we keep adding new ones, right? We've noticed that this sort of split screen video format seems to
Yes.
be trending on Pinterest, and so that's going to be in the app as an option in the next week or two. We recently added TikTok, as that obviously sort of is an emerging platform for bloggers. So yeah, there's a lot of options. The average blogger is sharing to probably on average three platforms, but there are about 15 options for 7 or 8 different platforms that you get all at the same time.
Well, this might expand some food bloggers' horizons then.
And that's actually that's the case. We have people who food bloggers who have giant Instagram followings and giant blog followings who have used Jump Rope to create a YouTube channel, and all of their YouTube videos are sort of created with Jump Rope. Like similarly, a lot of new people are using IGTV for the first time, Pinterest video for the first time, using our sort of step by step video format on their actual blogs. So yes, it has definitely enabled people to expand their horizons, because instead of having to do a bunch of work, they just have to click a button or two to share to a new platform.
I read some statistic somewhere. I don't know where I heard this, but I that posts that have a video, they do like 50% higher in rankings. This is an SEO kind of question.
Mhm.
Have you seen that kind of statistic as well? That if you have a video, your post actually does performs better.
I don't. I have not seen that specific. That's not surprising to me, but I haven't seen that specific stat, so I don't want to sort of. I don't want to sort of comment where I
Yes.
don't know something.
Right.
We do a bunch of things with Jumper, and we can sort of go into this to sort of help you with SEO. If you're going to use if you're going to use the formats for web, and sort of we can talk about that. But that stat doesn't surprise me about video, but I haven't heard it directly.
So tell me just a second. So I'm a new jump rope user, let's say, and I'm creating my first video. It sounds to me like what I'm hearing you say is you have these templated cards, and I insert still photos into each step of the process. Like I have my process shots on my site anyway, so why not just have those transform into a video? Is that kind of what happens here?
That is one option for what happens. So any sort of card of a jump rope can be either a photo or a video. And so
Ah,
we have jump ropes that people make, as you were alluding to, where they take sort of a bunch of process shots. They never actually shoot a video, but their video is comprised of a sort of a series of photos. We have folks who do every step is a video. The cover is a photo, though. And then we have people who sort of create a mix of things, where sometimes a video is the best way to show something, sometimes a photo is the best way to show something, and it's a mix. And so yes, that's the case. Sort of a couple more things. there's really like three ways to sort of get content into Jump Rope. You can pick multiple things from your camera roll. So I think for your example, that would be the right way to do it. You can also take a longer continuous video and use Jump Rope to chop it up. And so, especially for something like maybe, cookie or cake decorating where the camera just needs to stay in one place, someone will shoot their whole video and then chop it up into the little steps in Jump Rope. We also have people who have some content on YouTube and want to put that on other platforms, and they'll take that YouTube video and use that sort of important split mode to chop that up. And then we have a camera built into the Jump Rope app, and so if you're creating content from scratch, it's super easy to do that within the Jump Rope app. And we have many people using Jump Rope in any of these modes of creation. But I would say that taking some content that's already on your phone and just sort of putting it in Jump Rope and playing with it and publishing it and experiencing it is probably my recommendation for sort of how to get started.
I see. So, wow, there's just so much to unpack there. It's amazing how fluid it is. Are you able to, you've got these templated cards. Are you able to, as a user, can I go in and like customize those so that they kind of fit my brand?
Yeah. So we have a bunch of sort of preset. So you can customize on the following dimensions. So color, font, and animations. So for color, we have a bunch of preset combinations that work for text color and background color. You can also go in and enter any specific hex value. So you have sort of total control of font color and background color of the cards. On fonts, we have a sort of a library of fonts to choose from. And animations, we have a library of animations to choose from. And on sort of fonts and animations, our plan is to sort of expand and give people more options in the future.
And so those animations are basically how you transition from slide to slide?
Exactly. Yeah, that's
Okay.
exactly right.
And if you're using still photos, do you have that Ken Burns effect that we can make a still photo look like it's moving?
The Ken Burns effect is applied by default. So yes, you have that.
Good. Because that way,
it goes to sort of our philosophy with building Jump Rope is basically to say, like, let's let the more and more of the work to make your content look awesome that our app can take off your shoulders, we try to do. And so where our philosophy has been be like, do something that's powerful but keep it simple. And sort of Ken Burns thing is a great example. We just add that in by default.
Right. I got you. Okay, that's good. So what I like hearing here is like there's so many ways to use it. If you only have still photos and like process shots, you could turn that into a video. Or maybe you have done this already, very long YouTube video where you'd like to see that on Instagram stories or in other places. And so you can chop that up and have it actually into this templated format too. I can see the advantages of both.
Yeah, exactly. It's even amongst just like food bloggers, we see people using the app in such different ways, and that's fun for us to see.
I bet that it's like it creates the new pathways in your mind of how you can help other people use it too. I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So, what I'm curious about is, you mentioned that I can create these videos. Like, let's say I've got a post that currently doesn't have any videos and I've got all these process shots. And so I turn that into a video. Where does that video reside? I mean, am I going to upload it to YouTube or if I wanted to put that in my site and embed it, does it reside on Jump Rope as well?
So all the videos reside on Jump Rope. So if you want to put that video on your site, there are a number of different options. So one option is upload it to YouTube and embed that YouTube player on your site. Another option is, especially this makes sense if you are with something like Mediavine or Cafe Media and you want to run pre-roll ads in front of that video, what you would do is you would actually upload, and what people are doing is they're uploading that same YouTube video to those dashboards, portals, not sure what they call them, and then they're able to sort of monetize that by running pre-roll ads, which is we've heard from bloggers who are sort of at that level is like sort of massively increasing sort of their revenue. Another option is to use basically a format we have, which is a bit like if you're familiar with what the Bon Appetit Basically site has done, where they're basically using little videos for each step, but breaking that out sort of step by step in a blog post. And so we have,
Hmm.
it's called sort of our blog embed format. And you can, if you're on WordPress, we have a simple plugin to get those on your site. And we've heard from a lot of bloggers that their audiences are loving that format because it makes a recipe just so easy to understand and digest, and it's so engaging. So that's been very, very popular of late.
But every video that's created on Jump Rope, is it automatically public on the Jump Rope app itself?
It is automatically public on JumpRope, right? And so in addition to sort of using JumpRope as a tool to create content for any of these different platforms, you're also going to sort of start building an audience on JumpRope as our audience grows. And we can sort of talk about this in a minute. And we're working with Google on something called Google Web Stories, which is starting to bring a really big audience into the JumpRope app.
That's great. So it means that I have the potential to get exposure on my site because of the video, but also on the Jump Rope app and any other app that I choose or platform I choose to share the video.
Exactly.
Now, how do you know how much traffic that, like, let's say I share something on Jump Rope and it goes Jump Rope viral. I don't
Yeah.
know what that means right now. I mean, I don't know. I hear people say the word viral, and I always wonder what that means. Like for some people, viral could be like 1,000, and other people it's 1,000,000. So
Yeah.
it's a very nebulous term, I think. But anyway, if something goes viral on Jump Rope, and do you have any idea of how much traffic that actually sends to the blogger?
We do. I don't know specifically, but we do know that bloggers have told us that when they've seen spikes in like they've seen spikes to their blog or a certain post to their blog, and then realized, oh, that was because this content got a lot of traction on Jumprope. I don't
Mm,
know sort of I don't know off the top of my head like if a video gets 10,000 views on Jumprope, what's the typical flow through to a blog? But we
right.
know people have seen like spikes when things have trended on Jumprope.
And is it similar to something I mean, I'm thinking of Instagram. It sounds kind of more relatable, at least in my mind. So is it kind of similar to Instagram where you have a post and you have some text below it and possibly the link that people can go to the site for more information?
Yeah. So the way basically, if you think about consuming a Jumprope in the Jumprope app, you could think of it as like a lot like a series of Instagram stories with a beginning and an end. And so there are little basically panels of content that you sort of tap through. And that's sort of the main consumption format in the Jumprope app. And again, we know stories are super engaging, and sort of people are loving consuming them in Jumprope. What we are, and this is sort of coming to the app in the next week because we've gotten a lot of feedback from bloggers that they want the ability to tie one jump rope to one post on their blog. Similar to how if you sort of have swipe up on Instagram stories, you can sort of put
Yeah.
a blog post in associated with a series of stories or a story. And so in the next week or two, we're adding sort of a link that will be persistent. So as someone is watching your jump rope, they can click on that link and sort of um, go to that relevant or related blog post. As we know, that's important to bloggers, and therefore we're adding it, which will certainly increase the traffic, even versus the traffic they're getting today, um, to their blog.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I'm just thinking about, SEO for a second here. I assume since there's currently no link, there's probably no SEO juice related to something that's doing very well on Jump Rope, as far, for a particular post on my site.
There isn't SEO juice in that in the way of passing what people sort of colloquially call link juice. But there's a bunch of other sort of SEO things that we do. So one is if you're going to use any of our formats embedded, not videos, but our blog post format or our Jumper embed format on your blog, that has recipe or how to markup embedded in it. And so you'll get that sort of advantage of that discoverability by Google by having that structured markup. The other thing, and probably the bigger thing, is we are basically the one of the best ways to go get exposure through Google Web Stories. Um, And that is a great way to sort of grow the traffic that you can sort of potentially get to your blog.
Okay, so we have to talk about Google Web Stories then, because I think it's kind of a concept that not a lot of people know about. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me sort of step back and sort of explain Google Web Stories sort of from Google's perspective. So Google's mission is to organize the world's information. And what's happened over the last 5 or so years, first starting with Snapchat, then Instagram, Facebook, and now sort of emergent platforms like Jumprope, is it's clear that this format of stories is here to stay, and people love creating in it, people love consuming it, and we believe at Jumprope, and I think that the team at Google also believes that for things like recipes, craft projects, beauty tutorials, stories is the evolved format for it and is like sort of here to stay. It's not a passing fad. And Google said, wow, this is a problem for us. Like, we don't have access to all of this awesome content being created in stories because stories doesn't really exist on the open web. It exists in these different apps that are sort of closed to Google crawling, and therefore Google being able to index and show its searchers the content. And if you think about it from Google as a business, they say this is a real problem because if people realize that we don't have the best information in our search results, they're going to stop searching on Google. Obviously, not overnight, but they will slowly start to search on other places for content, and that's a problem for Google. So it's a pretty big initiative inside of Google to sort of enable stories on the open web so that Google can show its searchers in search results stories. Um, Google has a bit of a chicken and an egg problem here, where they have to encourage publishers to create content in stories. And so far, they've not done a great job of doing that. What they're doing now is they're starting to show stories and privileged stories on what Google calls Discover. That has a
Mm.
billion daily active users globally. And so what Google's doing is they're rewarding early publishers who are using web stories with a sort of outsized amount of traffic via Google Discover. And these are already starting to show up in search results. And they will increasingly get prominence in search results over the next year or two, kind of the same way that they show a carousel of videos at the top of search results. Like going forward, probably not this year, but next year, we'll expect to see carousels of stories. And so it's pretty important as a blogger to sort of be in that format. Otherwise, it's you risk getting jumped within results on Google. Similar, I think, to what you were alluding to before of how it's helpful to have a video.
Oh, okay. So that's interesting because I mean, how would you describe the difference between a video and stories then? Because I mean, is it just that it's more templated?
Well, it's if you think about what makes stories special is that it enables you to tap through it and move at your own pace, right? So a video is 10 minutes, call it, or 6 minutes, and the only way to get through it is that scrubber bar, right? And so with stories, um, it chunks the content into little panels, right? So with Jump Rope, it's each card or each step is a tap. So if you're actually cooking, you can just pause on that step until you're finished and ready to move on to the next step. Whereas if you're just getting inspired, you can sort of tap really quickly because you don't need to see all of the detail of what things are doing. Google Stories are also pretty interactive. So the Jump Rope integration into Google Stories has all the products listed, and bloggers or creators can actually put in links, and those can include affiliate links for where to buy those products. So there's a bunch of advantages to stories that traditional video doesn't have. And those
Yeah.
advantages are sort of those advantages exist on the Jumprope platform, and they exist in Jumprope's integration into Google Web Stories, which really takes the same format that you see in the Jumprope app and brings it to the web in a way that Google can index into its stories format.
Do you see some, like right now, for example, we all put our recipes in a recipe card. Now we're
Yep.
actually doing lists using cards. Do you see some kind of format that we would want to put our stories in on our blog post in particular, or is that something that's probably coming down the road?
I don't know. So I think that it's I think the what my recommendation for stories is like, what are the steps? It's sort of similar to what are the steps to do the recipe, right? If you are just cooking, if you're cooking this banana bread, like, and you're going to describe it to me and show it to me, like, what are the specific steps? And it's like, each ingredient doesn't need to be its own step. If you're pouring flour, sugar, and baking soda into a bowl, that can kind of be one step because you're doing that all at once. Mashing up the bananas can be another step. Mixing the ingredients together is another step, etc. It's pretty intuitive. I think food bloggers and most bloggers find it pretty intuitive for how to break down their steps once they get into it. Um, and one thing we were thinking about, we haven't done this yet, is how we integrate better into existing recipe cards. One request we've gotten is people are saying like, well, I have a bunch of this content in my recipe card. I don't want to retype it. And so like what will be coming is ways where you can take things like recipe cards that exist and more easily turn them into jump ropes.
Interesting. Wow. So it,
And,
it
and
you know,
probably vice versa too, where you can get the things you create in jump rope into a recipe card. This, to be totally clear, this doesn't exist in the app today, but it's something that we are sort of thinking about and working on and trying to learn more from food bloggers and other bloggers, well, in this case food bloggers, what they want, what's their workflow, so we can do this right.
I feel like I've been hearing the last couple of years how video is just, it's so important. But now I feel like I'm hearing you say it's gone to another level. Like, video itself is not quite as important. It's really how you produce that video and allow your consumers to use it.
Yeah, I think that video. I think video is more engaging than text for most people. But I would think about stories as just an evolved format of video,
Yes.
where video was designed. If you think about it, it sort of dates back to like the like beginning of the motion picture, where you would sit in a theater and on a screen it would be projected something, right? And you couldn't. There's no way you could touch that screen, and
Right.
the film was already made. So even if you touched the screen, it wasn't going to do anything. Whereas, stories are designed for a world where we all have, connected touch screens that fit in the palm of our hand. And that means that we can actually touch and interact with video in a way that just wasn't possible sort of with how traditional video or like MP4 files grew up. And it's that interactivity of what we can do with a touchscreen in our hand that makes stories so powerful and so interesting.
Yeah, that's great. And I love the fact that it's easy for people to use. I mean, when I say people, I feel like you have two consumers here. You have the end
Mhm.
consumer, but you also have the blogger who's using it to edit, and it makes it so much easier for them to do that. I think that's great. And the fact that you can take that content and share it in so many different places like Pinterest or Instagram or wherever you want to do. You really thought through a lot of these details.
Well, we've thought it through, but we've also, I would say, one of the things I believe we're great at as a company is listening and taking feedback. And so we would have never gotten here without if you played with Jump Rope a year ago, it wasn't anywhere near as good as it is today. And we've gotten lots of feedback from lots of people and synthesized that and said what's important here, and continue to make it better. And for folks who try it, like we know it's not perfect. We know it's far from perfect, and we want to hear your suggestions, your feedback, your ideas, and we will be able to incorporate that into future versions.
So let's talk for a second about monetization because I feel like, traffic is one model of monetization. So food bloggers are looking for traffic to come to their site, but there's other ways. And I'm hearing you talk about the fact that this is shoppable. Can you talk a little bit about that part? And specifically what I'm wondering is, let's say I put an affiliate link in one of my videos, like here's how you buy this food processor. Um, does that affiliate income come to me, or does Jump Rope take a cut of that? How does that work?
Yeah, so right now that affiliate income is all coming to you. So that affiliate link will show up on Google Web Stories. That affiliate link will show up in the Jump Rope app. It can't show up in a video on YouTube because again, this is one of the limitations of the MP4 format. Is like you can't put a link in an MP4. But yeah, you get 100% of that revenue from people who view your content and buy that food processor.
Ah, that's great because like I was saying, if you're looking as traffic as your sole source of income, this is just another way of expanding that. And I know everybody's so interested in, ways to improve affiliate income as well. So this is a great tool for that.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So, how difficult is that? Like, is that another thing that's kind of templated, or it's pretty straightforward? Like, we know how to put affiliate links in our recipes and in our blog posts. Is it similar with Jump Rope?
Yeah, so the way it is fairly templated. So any jump rope, it doesn't need to have products listed, but we encourage people to list them. And so you add these little product cards, kind of write a name. We have a bunch of photography, especially of things like common ingredients that we've hired food photographers to shoot, and some of it sort of comes from the community. A bunch of the like product, like the photography is already taken care of for you. And then there's just a blank to put in your link. And if you do put in a link, you don't need to put in a link, right? For bananas, most times people don't put in a link. But if you put in a link, a little buy button will show up underneath it basically in that product card underneath the photo. So people can just click through and buy it.
Oh, that's great. I've heard you talk about how Jump Rope listens really well to the consumer that is the food blogger, the producer of the content. Have you had changes that have happened as a result of listening to the end consumer, the person who's like using that video to make things? I'm just curious if how responsive you are to, like let's say they don't like some certain feature and are you changing those things?
Yeah, I would say we're definitely listening. We're definitely listening to both sides. I think this is the case a lot for sort of two-sided platforms. Is that actually like there's a lot more features and functionality for the blogger or the creator to create something that is then awesome and simple for the end user. But we're definitely listening to the end user. I think one thing we've heard from them that's coming soon is sort of I call this concept like communities, and that there are all these little micro communities. They're often represented in subreddits of people who are sort of passionate about like somewhat specific things. So my favorite go-to example here is like vegans who have nut allergies, right? And so, um, they if you are a vegan who has nut allergy, like you want to see a community and be in a community of other people like you. And vegan recipes that are full of nuts are not that helpful, right? Nut-free recipes that are not vegan are not that helpful. And you want to be able to go to a place and really like interact with and see the content that is really for your community. And again, that's not something that really exists in the app quite yet, but it's something we're really thinking about because we know these sort of communities and affiliations are powerful. And we also know that a lot of bloggers are, a lot of the most successful bloggers are successful because they do have a niche and they're super well followed in that niche. And so that's just an example of something we've heard from the sort of viewing side that will be coming to the platform.
I see. I love that because I mean, it's one of my complaints about Instagram, to be completely honest, is I feel like as a consumer, I feel like it's very tough to navigate. Like if I'm following some specific people and I don't see their stuff in my feed, that stuff just drives me crazy. Sounds like this idea of communities would solve all that.
Yeah, I think the community thing solves it. It also that specific issue, right? We can solve with algorithms as well. And so another thing we'll work on the viewing side is providing a more personalized experience, so that you're more likely to see the content first that you're more likely to engage with. Um, there's we've put the majority of our efforts so far as a company into building an amazing creation tool, and enabling creators to share that everywhere. And that's kind of been the first step in a number of steps to building a big platform. And again, that was sort of pretty consistent with what Instagram did, pretty consistent with what YouTube did. And over the next year, we're going to turn our attention much more to making Jump Rope an amazing place to engage and consume this content.
What I'm curious if you're looking, into the future, do you have, I mean, obviously you already have a lot of really great features. Are you looking to new features that you might be adding to?
Yeah, I mean, there's our list of things that we want to do is feels endless, and there's
I
never quite
bet.
enough time to do everything,
Yep.
to do everything we want. I would say some things that are coming in the near term is some really fun stuff with animation, which it is going to enable people to sort of really personalize their videos even more for sharing to places like Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, etc. That's one big thing that's coming. Another thing is sort of another like even more powerful editing tools. So being able to combine two photos or two videos into a single step, being able to cut out the middle of a certain video, and so just taking some of those more traditional editing tools and applying them to Jump Rope. Um, but there's, as I said, like a new one that we're sort of just releasing is a format to share to TikTok, which has been one of the most requested features. So there's lots coming.
Yeah. One other question I have is, when you're doing an embedded video on a blog post, have you heard any issues of whether that causes site speed problems for the blog post itself?
It would if we didn't think about it, and so we what's called lazy load the content. And so we are not aware. We very consciously we were very aware that people would not want their site speed to be slowed down. And so we very consciously built around this. I have not heard a single sort of complaint about site speed, but obviously, if people do notice things that are problematic, we would definitely want to hear about them. But we have hundreds of bloggers using this on their sites, many thousands of people have created. But I know we have but the embedded features, and I haven't heard a single complaint.
Okay, that's great. So, where do people go to get it? Do they go, obviously the App Store or Google Play Store? Where do people go to get Jump Rope?
Yeah, so you're exactly right. App Store, search Jump Rope one word. Google Play Store, search Jump Rope one word, and you'll find us. It's totally free. No in-app purchases. All of the tools are free. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's all in your hands to make things happen.
And is it mostly phone based, or can you also use it on your computer?
Right now, creating is only on a phone. You can consume on web, so you can view on web on a computer. We are working on building a desktop app for Macs. Um, exact timeline is still TBD. It's probably sometime later this summer that will have a parallel app that will work basically identically as the phone app, but be available for Macs.
Okay, so if you were talking to a blogger today that is really hesitant to start adding video or stories to their site, I'm just curious, what would you tell them?
I would tell them spend 15 minutes with Jump Rope, flick in some content from your camera roll that you have shot, and hit that publish button or hit the preview button. And I bet it's going to be a lot easier than you think. And that's what we hear. We hear this over and over again that people have tried video before, they've failed, they've outsourced it, they haven't been happy with it. They've tried to do it themselves, they haven't been happy with it, and they're intimidated by it. And we get it. We hear this over and over and over again, and invariably people try Jump Rope who are those type of people who have not figured out video in the past, and they're like, "Wow, this is a totally new world. This is so much easier. I'm hooked." And we've really changed. It's because we've really changed the paradigm. We've gotten away from this sort of complicated, open-ended, technical timeline-based editing and gone to something that's much more like cards. If you can create Instagram stories, you can create a Jump Rope.
I love it. Okay, Jake, I have these fun questions I like to ask at the end of the interview. Are you game?
I'm game.
Okay, let's do it. These are food bloggers, so they really want to hear about food, and I'm just curious. Can you tell me what's a favorite food of yours?
What is a favorite food of mine? I'm super into shakshuka, which I know is also trending right now, but I love sort of Middle Eastern food, big fan of eggs. Yeah.
So I'm going to sound like this Missouri hick that I am, and you'll have to tell me what that is.
So shakshuka is this is like now I'm gonna have to use I'm good at describing tech things, but now I'm gonna have to use real food words. So
Yes.
shakshuka is again I'm pretty sure it's sort of it's sort of comes from somewhere in the Middle East. It's generally like a vegetable tomato-y stew as the base, and then there are generally a few eggs, uh, cooked on the top, often a bit runny, and then often served with like a hearty piece of bread. And so it's this weird high. It's a very brunch oriented food. Yeah.
Did you say brunch oriented? So like it's a late
Yeah,
afternoon or
I
late
feel like
morning?
it's like it's the type of thing you would get on like at a restaurant on on a Saturday or Sunday brunch. It's like a
It
little
sounds
indulgent for a normal breakfast, but it's like definitely a middle of the day food. It's not really a dinner food.
Yes, it sounds like, something that you could also easily make very spicy, which
Yes,
is
I
good.
think you could definitely make it very spicy.
Cool, that's good. I'm gonna have to check that out. I've never heard of it, but, like I say, Kansas City, sometimes we're a little bit behind on some of those things, so I'll look into that.
Yeah,
Okay, what's
try
a
it.
favorite app? Oh, go ahead, sorry.
And they're definitely I know there are a bunch of really good shakshuka recipes on Jump Rope. So uh, that's the place you got to go to check it out.
Do you make it yourself?
I have never made it myself. I'm not. I'm not. I would say I'm someone who is a good assistant in the kitchen, but I'm not a great
Yes.
chef myself.
That's okay, at least you can be a good appreciator of food, so that counts too.
Totally.
What's the favorite app on your phone?
What's a favorite app on my phone? Um, I'm a big fan of Peloton, which is something I had not really used before quarantine. But it is, which is Peloton is the sort of,
Yes.
exercise bike adjacent thing. And what I think they've done so brilliantly is they've designed this experience that is both physical and digital and also communal.
Yeah.
And I'm so super impressed with what they've done of the experience of getting on the bike and sort of seeing everything happen on the screen, but then also being able to see what your friends are doing, and are you beating your friends or not? And it's quite an impressive. I'm kind of like a design nerd, and I think it's a brilliant design.
I go to my community center to work out sometimes, and there's a spin class, but it's like they just throw up this video and you watch, maybe you're riding your bike through Canada or something,
Mhm.
and it's beautiful. So the scenery is gorgeous, but it's just so, I don't know. It's like a one off. It's like I don't feel any communal, like that inspiration to really go for it. And I feel like Peloton really has. They it's like the instructor's right there and they're pushing you, and that feels good.
Totally, and there's this leader. Again, different people are motivated by different things, right? But
Yeah.
there's just like leaderboards. There's always someone to go like catch and try harder, and you see your personal
Yes.
records. And if you're doing it with friends, you see how your friends are doing. You see like what percentile you are in the class, and there's like so many things to keep you motivated.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, do you have any time for TV or reading at all? And if you do, what's the favorite?
I am not a big TV watcher. I would say I do watch a little bit of news, but I'm not a big TV watcher. Um, I'm a big fan of like sort of magazine articles. I don't know if I'm not the person who's like a ton of attention span for sort of a long book, but I love a really well written long magazine article in something like the New Yorker or the Atlantic or the New York Times Magazine. Um, yeah,
I thought maybe you were when you said long form, I immediately thought of The Atlantic. I feel like they have some really great articles.
totally.
And
There's so much good stuff out there right now.
yeah, and I feel like in today's world, it's like if I can find this that very informed writer, I feel like I trust them and I want to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, and then I often find a bunch of books are really like a magazine article that was really popular that someone was like, I want to turn this into a book. But it's like, no, you can just read the magazine article for 30 minutes and get 80% of the value of reading the book.
Yes, exactly. So, Jake, if people want to interact with you or connect with you online, what's your favorite place to send people to?
Yeah, so I'm actually very open to interacting, and I love interacting with creators in any number of places. So I'm just at Jake Poses on Instagram, at Jake Poses on Twitter, and you can also just message me or email me at jake@jumprope.com. And the other thing I'd say is that we have chat in the app, and we're Let's Jump Rope on Instagram, and Jump Rope Eats is our specific food community on Instagram. And we try to be super responsive if creators have questions, both in the chat feature in the app as well as on Instagram. And we love supporting creators. The questions are really helpful for knowing what we need to change and what confuses people. And so please reach out, please be in touch. I love getting emails from creators, both with loving the app and having issues. And so please reach out.
Sometimes we learn the most from the critics anyway, don't you think?
Absolutely. Totally. Yeah. I mean, actually, I think that some of our creators will sometimes write us, a page email, and they'll love the app, but they'll call out like, here are 12 things that I would love you to change. And it's not because they're like, I don't like this. It's because they love it and they want these little things to be better. And I'm always like, oh my God, this email is so helpful.
That's great. I love people like that too. It's very helpful. Jake, thank you for taking the time to talk with me today. I think we gave everybody a lot of good food for thought. So thank you.
Amazing. And we can't wait to see everyone from this community's recipes on Jump Rope soon.
Thanks to Jake Poses for being my guest on today's episode of the Chopped Podcast. If you want to hear about the latest in food blogging, including keeping up on every episode of the show, head to chopped.academy and hit subscribe today. Thank you so much for listening in today, and I hope you found some inspiration about ways you can use video on your blog and social media. You inspire me, and I hope today's show was helpful and inspirational to you as well. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.